biting off more than you can chew is like, that's my bread and butter at this point. Honestly, it just gave me severe anxiety because there were so many people there. And so I was like, we set up at the table and then like the doors open and everyone sprints past us to go line up at these guys' tables. And it was a very humbling experience.
I think the only way that you can do that and do that consistently and face the awkwardness, the uncertainty, the anxiety is if there's something important that you're doing this for.
All I can do is put in the effort of this stuff and put it out there and like give it everything I've got. If people respond to it, they respond. But if they don't, you know, I'm not going to stop either way.
Hello, Tyler James here with ComixLaunch, and I have a special interview queued up for you, first timer on the show. So let's bring on my guest today. I think you're going to like this conversation that we have, especially if you're someone that's a little bit on the early side of your creative journey. My guest today is a writer who's based out of New Hampshire, and he's known for the coming-of-age henchman series, The Routine, and the upcoming sci-fi western, The Remainders. So welcome to ComixLaunch, John Burke. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's kind of tripping me out to see the intro and then have my face pop up instead of someone else's, but this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you connecting and reminding me that I told you next time you had something to launch to reach out and we'll set it up. I also know that you woke up feeling a little bit under the weather, so you're gonna bear through that. And we also talked about how sometimes a little bit of a cold makes your voice sound cooler.
Here's to hoping.
We'll hope it works out for you.
I'll try to keep the mucus sounds to a minimum over here.
That's all right. I think the fall cold and allergy season is definitely hitting a lot of people right now. So, yeah, I mean, today should be a good topic. You sent over some ideas for some things to talk about that I think we'll dive into. But we first connected. I know you sort of listened to the ComixLaunch podcast, sort of got on the old VIP email list. But we first connected a while back on one of the one-on-one strategy calls that I do, and these are sort of an opportunity that I only really carve out a couple weeks out of the year to do these. But there's a chance for me to just talk one-on-one with some of the people out there in ComixLaunch land, people that listen to the show, people that connect with some of our content, and just see if we can help them in a short experience. Do you remember like some of the things that you were hoping to get out of that one-on-one strategy call when you booked it? And then also, can you fill me in on what some of the things that you've been up to since that call?
Yeah, I remember the call pretty well. I don't know what I was hoping to get out of it. I just felt like lost in the woods at the time, but I remember what you said pretty clearly. We had talked a lot about serializing being the way to go forward, and that it made complete sense to me. And then you talked about Facebook ads, and you had some ideas for like Facebook lead ads that you threw my way, and ended up using all that. And yeah, that was a while back though. And that was before the launch of the first issue of The Routine, I believe. Since then, we've launched a second issue of The Routine. And now I have a new project coming out next week, actually, called The Remainders.
Yeah, awesome. Tell us a little bit about The Remainders. I know the pre-launch page is open, and so we'll encourage people, if it sounds like it's up their alley, to go check that out. But what can you tell us about this new project?
Yeah, The Remainders, it's the new series I'm working on. It's a space western kind of vibe. It's about an outlaw family that lives in hiding on a planet that is completely overrun with garbage. It sort of follows the wayward son of this family as he's trying to find his way home, amongst the chaos. I guess it's really just a story about learning to love the place you're from, despite its flaws, and under any and all circumstances.
Yeah. Something that is relatively new, and I want to make sure that all of our listeners sort of know about this, is after Kickstarter did their revamp of pre-launch pages, you now have the ability to add some extra stuff to your pre-launch page. And so, right now, as I've looked at it, I'd still say like 80-90% of creators aren't taking advantage of this new feature, that there's basically a short story section for your pre-launch page, but it looks like you decided to plug in some content there. Can you just share like what was your thinking behind, hey, how much should I put on this pre-launch page as we're in pre-launch now that you can put something?
That's a really good question, because it seems like it's untrod territory, right? The more I kept adding, this is just turning into the full story page from the Kickstarter at this point. But I wanted it to be brief and succinct, so where it told the bare bones of the story and then gave you a taste of the art. Because I mean, this is comics, it's a visual medium. So having art up there is essential,
Yeah.
Um, but I tried to keep it as minimal as possible, not overwhelm the reader. And hopefully it's enough to bait people in that they want to get notified. And then when the campaign launches, we'll throw all the rewards and everything and the full length story on there.
Yeah, and I think that is something that people have to weigh, is like, maybe you don't want to necessarily like too much is probably not enough, because the only real goal of this page is, hey, get people to click this button over here and
Yeah.
get on your follower list. But at the same time, a little bit more can't hurt. Prior to this update, very limited amount of information that you could put on this page. Sometimes those constraints are good for creators who then go overboard with it. But cool. So, one of the things that you, in the lead up to this call, you've talked about how your whole progression into making comics has been a constant progress of stepping into in arena after arena that you feel utterly ill-equipped to navigate,
Oh
and
yeah.
biting off more than you can handle is kind of that's what this whole thing takes. But sort of, I think this is something that's going to resonate with a lot of creators that are just getting started, or feel like, this is a Herculean feat just to get anything off the ground. But tell me a little bit about your journey and how you came to that realization and still moved forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty easy for me to remain humble in the beginning because I came into this like truly not knowing how to do any of it. I went to school for writing, like creative writing and English, and I was in school for quite a while actually. If you add the years up, I should probably be like a brain surgeon or something at this point. But all of the courses I ever took, like there was never an option to learn how to build an audience or a readership
Yeah.
or like anything about marketing yourself. It was just on the craft of writing. So when I was done with school and I had this script and I wanted to get things off the ground, I was starting from scratch. I had never, very few people, only people I'd gone to school with had read my work, and I wasn't even really in contact with most of them anymore. So I had to build from the ground up. And luckily there was a lot of people that have already, trod this path before. And that's how I came across your stuff. And yeah, so pretty much everything from building a readership, learning what were the viable ways that you could get a book out there, how to get in contact with an artist. I didn't know any of this going in. So it was like every single step was something new for me. So yeah, biting off more than you can chew is like, that's my bread and butter at this point. It's pretty scary every step of the way too, because it's all unfamiliar territory for me. But even like coming on this podcast,
Yeah.
I sent you an email like 3 weeks ago because you had thrown that offer out, and then you emailed back instantly, and I just procrastinated answering you for so long because I got the fear in me. But that still comes. But it's usually when I get nervous, there's that mix of fear and excitement a little bit. It's pointing me towards an opportunity for growth. And yeah, that's what all of these things have been. So whenever I get that anxiety tingle, it's kind of like an alert that this could be something good that you should pursue. And it's just a matter of, I might be a little, afraid or not know what I'm doing, but I got to do it anyways and navigate the best I can.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that separates the creators that are able to break free and break through it, is they change their relationship with that feeling of anxious and anxiety and nervousness. Oh, this is an opportunity, or oh, that's scary. And they train their body to say that's not something to run away from, that's something to run towards. That's what that feeling means. So much of our lizard brain is there to protect us and keep us safe and everything. And so to walk away from that. But you mentioned coming on the podcast, and this podcast since the very beginning was always intended to be a place where creators could come on here, talk about their projects, talk about some of the cool stuff that they're bringing to the world of comics and crowdfunding. But also, you got to keep the main thing. And the main thing for this podcast is a podcast for creators who are out here trying to get better at this thing, trying to learn the things that you said, hey, tons of education, tons of formal writing training, every act structure there is, or how to turn a phrase and grammar and everything. There's a whole lot that wasn't included in the traditional training programs about actually how you get your books into the hands of people that were actually going to read them and everything in between. And so I try to keep the main thing on this podcast, and that the main thing is making sure that everything that we talk about, or a lot of what we talk about, is going to be valuable to creators out there. And so for anybody that reaches out to me in the future, know that I'm going to say, yeah, all right, what project are you working on? What's cool? What do you want to talk about? And then also, how can we make this a conversation worth having for the creators that are our primary audience? As you said, that did give you an opportunity to say, oh, well, if it's not just going to be talking about my project that feels really comfortable, and I might actually have to get up here and deliver something of value, that's an opportunity to step back and just say, yep, never mind, won't do it. But instead, you're like, okay, I can do this. I can think of something. I can get outside of my comfort zone. So kudos to you for having the courage to do the uncomfortable thing there.
Yeah, thanks for giving the opportunity. And what you're talking about is a part of building a community and maintaining that community. And that was something that I learned through all these steps. And that's really like where most of the readership and all those practical steps came, was from other people and making contacts along the way. And those are the people that I've stuck with, and I've had meaningful experiences, so there are things I didn't foresee coming down the pipeline, but it's been awesome to be able to experience them.
Imposter syndrome is something I know a lot of creators, especially early on in their journey, but also anytime they're stepping up at a level. They're creators that are like indie comics kings, but then they get a chance to go work on one of their favorite properties, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, do I belong in this room? So it raises its head, from time to time. Were there opportunity or times over the past couple of years as you've been doing this where you really felt that imposter syndrome flare up? Any in particular come to mind? And then how did you actually, get past that to make it so these projects can be read and enjoyed by the readers out there?
Yeah, for sure. That has come up. There's just so many people with experience and big names and careers, because that's whose books I read. So I feel like when I'm not doing that exact thing, I just feel like I'm not with Image Comics in every comic store. Like, that's not when am I going to be found out? I can totally relate to that feeling. And yeah, so for my first like tabling at a con experience, we did Heroes Con, because the artist that I work with on the routine, Tyler, he lives in North Carolina, and it was a good opportunity for us to hang out. And I was like, let's just do the biggest one we possibly can in that area. That was the first one I've ever tabled at. Yeah. I've been to some before. Like probably the biggest one I'd been to was Fan Expo in Boston, and like honestly, it just gave me severe anxiety because there were so many people there.
Yeah, even Fan Expo is like half of it is super celebrities that aren't even in the world of comics. So
yeah,
that could definitely be like, do I even have a place here?
When I went to Fan Expo too, it took me forever to even find Artist Alley. I was like, where? I came here for comic, like, where are they? At a Heroes Con last year, we got our table was on the end of this row, and on the other side, on either side, was Howard Shakin and Adam Kubert. Were like right next to us, so we're like, oh, maybe this will be good. We're next to like these big names who we know who they are, and we set up at the table, and then the doors open, and everyone sprints past us to go line up at these guys' tables. And it was a very humbling experience. It's like, oh, okay. I learned a lot about just how conventions work too. I've been to Heroes Con twice. I really like going just because there's a cool community of people there, and it's an opportunity to get to hang out with the artists on the book. And we've gotten to be good friends, and we like to riff story ideas in person. Is like the most fun thing. So I'll probably keep doing it, even if it's not the most financially lucrative thing. But yeah,
well, I think there's definitely with conventions a tipping point of product where the math if all you have is a $5 book and you're dealing with tables that cost hundreds of dollars, your chances of economically making that work are just, the math don't math, right? And so that's why, like, on my journey, it was discovering the power of like the print that would really sell, and then having multiple books so that you could put together really attractive packages, so that when people are coming to your table, they're spending on average $25 to $50 instead of $5 to $10. But I totally understand it takes a while before you get there. The nice thing about where you are, though, is that you have Kickstarter to help with the product. I mean, my first couple of conventions, I was like, wait a minute, all right, Image is selling these books at $2.95, so I can't sell it. So I got to sell my books for $3. And even if it costs me $2.90 to produce them, all right, so we only have to sell 10,000 books to come close to make it. Yeah, they quickly realized that that wasn't going to work. But yeah, so at least the stage we're in now, where Kickstarter can help fund our product, does make conventions a little bit more lucrative, even if it is still a tough swing early on. Having your artist partner there, was he at least able to do some sketches and things like that to help cover the table? Or
Yeah, he did a couple commissions and stuff. There's definitely good opportunity there for artists to pick up on that stuff.
Nice. So another theme that you brought up that I thought was worth talking about, and also kind of related to the idea of stepping out of our comfort zone and taking off more than you can chew. I think the only way that you can do that, and do that consistently, and face the awkwardness, the uncertainty, the anxiety, is if there's something important that you're doing this for. You phrased that as staying focused on the mission, but how has that sort of helped you? How has having a mission and staying focused on it helped you do what you're doing?
So, I mean, it's essential, because I find that in trying to navigate this space, there's endless rabbit holes you could potentially go down. Every social media platform is like there's somebody there doing that 8 hours a day, 5 days a week as a job. And you could spend as much time as possible in any of these things. And we have to wear so many different hats that, I work a part-time job now, but yeah, I'd only have so much time that I'm able to devote to this, or that I can devote to those things. And so I have to be very clear and directed on how I'm spending that time. And in order to do that, I need to know what it is that I'm trying to achieve, and I need to be able to articulate that pretty clearly. And for me, it looks like my ultimate goal of what I want to do, and this is the most important thing, is that I just want to tell emotionally resonant stories that a lot of people will read and have an experience with. And so if I ask myself clearly on any task that I'm doing, if I know that for sure, then, am I doing this because I think I'm going to make a couple, I'm just trying to attract attention on this social media platform, or do I think it's going to eventually lead to that goal? And also knowing that too, it helps me deliberate my time, is like that tells me that I need to be focused on both the craft of what I'm doing, and also the ability to connect with readers. And those are two things that are kind of interlinked, but they both require different skill sets in some ways. Yeah. And so when we did the second issue of the routine, we were really focused on making that book as good as possible. And along the way, we kind of lost connection with some of the audience. It wasn't until after we got through that second Kickstarter that I realized a lot of the things that we did right on the first Kickstarter was we were excited, and we were sharing things along the road, and it got people excited, and they were connected to the work, and the feedback was so good on that first issue. And then I just kind of made the assumption, I was like, oh, these people were along for the ride on issue 1, they'll automatically be there for issue 2. But if they don't know that it's coming, or they don't have that enthusiasm locked in, it might not be as big. So it makes sure that I love the writing part. That's why I'm here. But also it tells me the importance of staying connected with the audience and making sure I'm taking steps to engage people, because that's the ultimate goal. I want to have that effect. I want to communicate with people, and I want to tell stories, that they're able to jump into another world for a time.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and something that can be lost upon creators who are like, okay, we got the Kickstarter thing down, and then we just we going into that very first Kickstarter, you're probably going with all these nerves like, oh, is anybody going to back this thing? I'm pretty sure my mom still to this day has the best collection of stuff that I've made. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, Mom, don't back this one.
Yeah.
You won't like this horror book. Going into that first one, you almost take the thing of well, this might not work, so I got to throw everything I have to it. Then it works. Then you hit goal, maybe do a little bit better. And now you just it can very easily to just normalize that and say, okay, well, that's our baseline. We have this, taken care of. And so, yeah, a lot of times going into those sophomore launches, an important question to ask yourself is hey, did my audience not show up for this one in the same way? Or was it me that didn't show up for this in the same way first? Because again, we have no power over making other people go and click that back button, making sure that their credit cards are up to date, and picking the pledge levels that we want them to pick. We have no control over that. We only have control over the stuff that we can do to express our passion, get people excited, and make sure that they know about our campaigns when they're live. And so pushing that back on yourself and saying, okay, obviously just launching isn't enough, and that the stuff that happens in between launches is actually absolutely critical. I'm curious. So, you've got, as you stated, your mission statement about telling emotionally resonant stories people will read and have an experience with. What are some of the things going on right now that you've noticed can easily distract you from your mission? And then how do you get back on task when you're like, oh crap, I am away from, or I'm getting off track here?
Yeah, there's so many things. This stuff is so time consuming and it requires your whole self to be in it so much of the time, but life is going to happen. If you're not tending to those things, this is going to fall by the wayside. Yeah, it comes in cycles a little bit. Right now, we just came off of the routine issue 2 launch, and I like the remainders has been cooking. We've been working on it the whole past year and it's ready to launch soon. So I'm sort of just in a cycle of promotion right now and getting the books out there. And I find that they're kind of like cyclical, and I can see down the pipeline because now that I've done it a couple of times, I can sort of see the patterns a little bit more. There's going to be a more quiet lull where I'm able to enter into my safe space as a writer, and then we'll enter back into promotion cycle, and it sort of moves back and forth a bit like that. And yeah, when I'm in that promotion cycle, there's a lot of stuff that can sort of like suck my attention, because you have to share it to be able to get it out there. But like, so if you getting super focused on likes and engagement, it's good. It's a good indicator, but like, it's also can be, we care, like I said, we care about this stuff so much and we put everything into it. And it can get really easy for me to put my sense of self-worth onto that and get stuck there and take it personally, but all I can do is put in the effort of this stuff and put it out there and give it everything I've got. And then the rest is out of my hands. So it's like, if people respond to it, they respond. But if they don't, I'm not going to stop either way. I'm in too deep the path that I've been on. So I'm just move on to the next project.
And so one of the things that it's clear you're doing now, like having one comic series up and running, that's its own thing. Have you learned anything about juggling now 2 concurrent series and 2 concurrent projects? Some things that you've done to be able to now sort of increase the number of plates that you're spinning?
Yeah, absolutely. The second project was definitely like a prime example of biting off more than I can chew. It started to get into the rhythm with the routine and like knowing, okay, script's going to Tyler, there's going to be some downtime. And I started working on another script and I was like, I think that I can bounce 2 projects now. And I knew that it would come with some headaches, but yeah, there was space for it. I think 2 is probably like the max that I can juggle at the moment. But I'm sure they'll, and like we were talking, this is such a time consuming process. I'm probably going to be locked up for the next year with these 2 series, which I'm totally happy to be because I love them both. But yeah, that's where I'm at as far as juggling, and then having cycles for them where I'm writing on one. And then it's nice to have, as a writer, art come in on both projects, sort of like ping ponging. So I'm always getting cool art coming in. I'm getting super excited about each story. It helps keep the energy up.
Absolutely. Nothing's better than your inbox filling up with cool stuff. It makes you excited to get back down there and write some more. Where do you want to take this? Where do you hope to be in your comic writing career 5 years from now?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to reach as many people as possible with the stories I've got. And I'm trying to be careful not to put career or money expectations on it because it's really not at the heart of why I'm doing it. If I had the opportunity to sustain myself off of the writing and comics full time, I would take it 100%. I would do the job for sure, but I don't want to hang that expectation or my sense of self-worth on my ability to do that. But as long as we continue to grow the audience and people will connect with the book and have an experience with it, and that's why I showed up. So that's enough for me. And then, I'll continue to push it and grow it as much as possible and just take the opportunities as they come.
One of the best writers I know, and, very prolific, opportunities and work for hire stuff and cool projects that he's been offered came after the self-imposed, if I don't make it by in 5 years that he called out in his 20s, all of these great opportunities came in, years after that. At one point he set an artificial deadline of, I have to, have X, Y, or Z done by this time, otherwise forget it. And so I think that's a good thing to, have goals, have milestones that you hope to achieve, but let's not put an undue amount of pressure on ourselves to make that the main thing. Because as you said, and I guess by having a mission and there's no, dollar amount associated with the mission that you're currently on, which is cool because that's, again, if you stay focused on that, you can still feel successful even if you haven't hit a certain financial goals just yet, right? So I think that's a good thing. It's been a while since I've done the old ComixLaunch speed round, but I like to do that for creators that come on the show for the first time. You up for it?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Number 1, finish the sentence. Kickstarter is blank.
Always changing.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, Kickstarter has made a lot of changes to the platform. It's clear that they're listening to creators. If you could change one thing about the Kickstarter platform right now, going into 2025, what change would you want to see from the folks at Kickstarter?
That's an interesting question. I'd never approached things for that mindset. It's always more just like, this is how it is. And like, how can I work best with the tools that I've been given? As far as what I would change, I like the community aspect of Kickstarter a lot. And I think that maybe there could be some way to like another part of Kickstarter, like forums or something where things could be discussed, because I think that community is essential to growing in this, through Kickstarter, and any way that they could accentuate that would probably be beneficial. But again, I'm not like a marketing guy. I don't know anything. This is just,
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's something that I'll give you kudos because I've never heard anyone bring up that specifically. But if you think about it, like, I still remember the days where forums were like when I got back into comics after taking a break, after college, and I was, went about 5 years of working where I wasn't doing anything creative. It was online forums that really got me back into the world of comics and discovering things like print on demand printers and digital coloring and all sorts of things that I didn't even know about. And so, even the idea of just like the comics category having a place where backers and creators would connect, I could see that being potentially valuable, sort of whether it's a Discord or whatnot. So,
right.
Yeah, good one. All right, number 3, what is your secret weapon, a tool, a resource, an app that you couldn't make comics without?
Final Draft is like my bomb. I got a nice template that I use, and the way that it programs character names, and like it makes writing so much faster and easier, and like I really can just focus on story. And I have like an outdated version of Final Draft where you don't have to subscribe for it, so it's like I'm holding on to this puppy with everything I've got.
Yeah.
I don't want to get the new one and have new formats and figure all that out. Right.
Yeah, I've been there. I think a lot of Photoshop users,
Right.
their old Photoshop broke. Still salty about that, but yeah. Promotion's an area that I think many creators struggle with. Do you have one promotion tip or something that works for you when you're launching your projects?
Okay, perfect. We can leave the gravelly voice in then. Thank you.
Yeah. Promotion. Do you have a promotion tip or something that works to help listeners find your books?
Yeah. So finding communities and participating in those communities is like my tip for new people that are trying to, and this was another thing that I didn't realize I was doing right on the first issue that I put out, that like later became clear, was that I had like a couple different, because I was learning everything from scratch. I like joined Discords and was participating in subreddits and stuff, and I was talking to people and like learning how to figure all this stuff out. And in doing so, like I was making connections, and those people were the most receptive to wanting to check out my work because they were already connected to it. So I would say any chance, and then after launching the first book, I was in more community. Some of them closed down, new ones opened up, and there's just always opportunities to like insert myself into a community and connect with people. And yeah, that's been like the most successful, like high hit percentage rate of like connecting with an audience, is when I'm able to like embed myself into a community like that.
Nice. Can you recommend one comic or book not done by you that more people need to check out?
All right. Does it need to be like a Kickstarter book?
Nope. Can be anything.
All right. Let me pull something up. So there's one book that an independent creator, I got at Heroes Con actually, and like this book blew me away. It was so good. It's called The Hue Marks by Victor Alpi. It's about these two shark people, and they're like kind of like buddies, and it's just this crazy. It's so super funny. The art's incredible, and the characters are very realized. It gets so weird and it remains funny. It's everything I love about indie comics because you can do whatever you want. You know, you just like this. You have this sandbox, and he does that. I highly recommend people check out The Hue Marks by Victor Alpi. All right, I'm gonna shut myself up because I could go on recommending because I've got so many friends with cool books and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We'll limit you to one because otherwise you start doing more than one, and then you're making people mad. Cool. We'll check that one out, John. Thanks. Hey, so it's great connecting with you. I'm happy to have you here on the Comics Launch podcast for your first time. Glad you got outside of the old comfort zone to talk about your books and your process. And I think there's been a lot. Do you have sort of and the nice thing about starting the journey and then taking the steps and getting and launching and getting your projects out there is like all of a sudden to a lot of people out there, you are like a grizzled veteran. Like you've done a lot more than most people that want to make comics have ever done. And so do you have one final like piece of advice that you'd like to share for people that are like maybe where you were 3 years ago or just getting started at this thing?
Just do the scary thing, walk through it and do it anyways, because that's where all of my growth is coming. Even worst case scenario is like it doesn't come off as you expected and you're in the exact same spot. It's like all of these spaces, whether it's like a big arena or a small arena that I try to step in that I've never been in before, I still don't know how to navigate any of them. So like go for the big one and like take a risk. You know what I mean? It's like I was very surprised when I stepped forward and actually took action, like how things panned out, and it continues to surprise me all the time. So just like things are scary, do it anyways. You might be surprised.
Love it. And wrapping up 2024 and into 2025, what's one thing that has you super excited to be a comic book creator, or that you're excited about coming out?
Well, the remainders, I'm super excited to have another series to work on. Now it's like I have developed a comfortable rhythm where I have these two stories with the characters that I know very well. It's because I can go back and forth from one project to the other and keep both of them fresh. And we've got, so this first issue is launching on Tuesday, election day, actually.
There you go. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
need a break from the
Exactly.
coverage, come back the remainders.
Yep, exactly. That was my thinking. I was like, okay, even like worst case, people are going to be like locked into their phones anyway. So maybe it'll pop up on their screen, but I'd like to offer an outlet on a crazy time where the media cycle can get a little toxic and like go into fantasy land and have,
Yeah, I mean, we had our most backed comic or graphic novel launch literally the week the COVID shutdowns happened. So there is something to counter programming.
Right. And it's like, it's taking a risk too. Because everyone that I talked to was like, oh, that's a brave thing. Initially, I just picked a day based off of V for Vendetta and Guy Fawkes Day. I was like, oh, remember the 5th of November. That would be easy for people. And then my friend Jeff was like, that's actually, you're brave for doing it on election day. And I was like,
what?
Again? What do you? And then everybody kind of had the same response, and I was like, all right, it seems like there might be something here. If there's a little resistance, maybe there's an opening. I don't know. We'll see how it pans out.
Absolutely. What's the best way for listeners to connect with you?
Well, if you follow, I'm probably most active on Instagram. It's John O. Burke with periods in between the, next to the O. Or if you, I have a link tree as well. You can sign up for the mailing list. I can add you to the mailing list so you can know when the new books come out. Follow on Kickstarter, of course. And then I think I got an account on Global Comics as well if you want to see like some previews and stuff.
Well, awesome, John. Hey, it was great to chat with you again. Excited to have you on the podcast, and excited for your expanding comic book universes that you're putting out there. Way to share your insights on it. Way to keep stepping outside your comfort zone, man. Excited for what's to come from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do for the whole community. Like without the signposts of your podcast and the material you put out, I would have been completely lost in the woods. I know there's so many people that feel the same way. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. And thanks everyone else there watching this and learning from John and getting uncomfortable with your own projects. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep rooting for creators like you. Thank you so much for watching, and we can't wait to see what you launch next.